Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are filming a much anticipated video, my second gear video ever. My first one was the gear video that I put out before I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2021, going through all my gear items, and I was going to do a video comparing what I ended the trail with compared to what I started it with. And I started filming that video. I did a whole thing, and I realized that I was basically just going through all the same stuff. So the SparkNotes version of that video is that I changed almost nothing from my gear setup from when I started to the end of the trail, which is kind of unheard of. But that's just how I am too. It's not that I didn't have some gear complaints or that I was completely satisfied with everything. I'm just the kind of person that will deal with whatever I got. So that's what I did. And I decided instead that I could split up some videos and give my in-depth thoughts about each item that I brought on the trail. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna start out with the big three that I brought on the trail. So your big three is your three most important items in your backpacking setup, which are your backpack, your tent, and your sleeping bag. So we're going to go through what I used for my Appalachian Trail Thru-Hike and go through the pros and cons and basically all the thoughts that I had about these items on the trail. So let's do it. Let's get started. We're going to start off with this guy. My backpack, I used the Gregory Paragon 58 liter, and I'm going to be honest up front, I did not like this backpack at all. Honestly, it was horrible. So just know, before I say anything else, just don't get this backpack. It's not good. So the pros, the things I liked about the backpack, I thought 58 liters was a good capacity for me, and I think that's a really solid place to start for anybody who's a beginner backpacker who's not ultralight. Or if you can cut down on stuff, I would say like 50 liters or 45 liters would be the low end. There's a lot of people out there with like 30-liter packs, and I honestly don't know how they do it. So yeah, I thought 58 liters was perfect. I could carry as much stuff as I really wanted, and it worked. And the other pro that I liked about this pack is the color. I just like green, and it's a good color. And that is pretty much where the things that I liked about the pack ended. So the cons that I had with the pack were definitely durability. Durability was horrible on this pack. It started ripping at the seams at some extremely critical points in 4 different places. So I'll show you. This pack, about, I want to say 500 miles in, started ripping here, and then here, and here. So pretty much all of the load-bearing points on the straps started ripping, and I was only carrying at most 33 pounds in this pack at a time, and the pack's carrying capacity is 50 pounds. And that's part of the reason why I got this pack, is because it had such a high load capacity that I thought that it wouldn't break down no matter what I put in it, because I wasn't going to get close to that load capacity. But I was wrong. And every person that I ran into on the trail that had this same pack, I would ask them if they were having these same issues. Every single person had issues with their seams ripping. And the only reason why this pack was able to make it to Maine was because I had a friend help me out and reinforce the seams. So she was able to get some quilting thread in there and reinforce all the seams so that it wouldn't fall apart, because by the time I was in Vermont, this seam was ripped halfway across, and I thought that it was going to just give out at any moment. So yeah, I was super disappointed with that. And the other con about this pack was, I guess, the customer service too, is where I'm going, because I reached out to Gregory and voiced these concerns. I wanted to see if they would maybe replace the pack since they have a lifetime warranty. I felt like it must have been like a production issue or something, because it was just not holding up. Or if they would repair the pack or something, because I was like, I spent $250 on this pack. It wasn't like the cheapest pack you can buy, and it just wasn't doing it. And so on that end, the customer service, they never even got back to me. I submitted the inquiry online. I emailed them, sent photos. I called them, never got an answer. Never even got anybody on the phone. And then I never heard back from anybody. They didn't even acknowledge my inquiry. So I was pretty peeved about that. But you know, we made do. The pack did end up making it to Maine, so I will say that, like, it held up in the end, but it was a struggle. And you don't want to be struggling with durability with your gear on the trail. Another con about this pack is it's super heavy. It weighs 3 pounds 9 ounces, and that was a compromise that I was willing to make, because I thought this was going to be a really durable pack, and that's the way that it was sold to me by the guy at REI. I mean, I guess he probably didn't know better, and he thought the same thing as me, like, it's a heavy pack, it's got a high carrying capacity, so it must be durable, and that was not true. And the other option that I was considering was the Osprey Exos. So that's another kind of like basic, just good all-around entry-level pack that I didn't end up going with because it had a lower carrying capacity at around 40 pounds, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be getting up to that high of a level, and I just wanted a pack that was going to last forever. And in hindsight, I wish I went with the Exos, because it was almost a pound lighter than this pack. So super heavy pack for no reason. The heaviness does not add any durability. Then there was the comfort side of things. This pack, the hip belt was rubbing my hip the wrong way and pinching my hip really badly, so I had terrible chafing the entire way on the trail for my entire through hike. It never went away. But yeah, we dealt with it. We battled through. In hindsight, yeah, I probably should have replaced the pack while I was on the trail, but there's not a whole lot of room for doing stuff like that when you're out there. At least there wasn't in my mind. I just didn't feel like going and then spending a bunch of money on a new pack when you have one that is technically working. Yeah, in hindsight, it probably would have been worth it to spend the money and spend the time to just go get that done, but you live and you learn. Yeah, so we made it. I'm probably going to end up getting a different pack in the future. I'm looking at the Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60 liter, because yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going down in size in my gear anytime soon. I'm not really looking to go super ultralight, but that pack's under 2 pounds and looks really good. People seem to like Gossamer gear too. So yeah, that's all I got on the pack. That's going to be the longest portion of this video because I just have so many negative things to say about this pack. Overall, 1 out of 10. Don't recommend it to anybody. And for that matter, I don't recommend any Gregory packs to anybody. It seems like their quality has gone down in recent years. So yeah, just look elsewhere, honestly. Sorry, Gregory, if you want to reach out to me and try... I mean, actually, no, I'm not even interested in anything with Gregory. I'm done with Gregory. We're done. We're done. On that note, let's move on to the tent portion of our video here. The tent that I used on the trail was the Nemo Dragonfly one-person tent that I have right here, just strewn about. I don't have the stuff sack for the tent anymore, because, well, pro tip for you guys, to save space and a little bit of weight with the stuff sack when you're backpacking, is to just stuff your tent in to your backpack loose so that it fills any weird spaces in there. Yeah, and that seems to optimize space inside your pack really well. So you don't got to put your tent in its stuff sack with the poles and everything, because that whole unit together, it ends up being kind of awkward. Yeah, so anyway, this tent, I liked this tent. It was pretty good. The pros, I would say that it's relatively lightweight for a freestanding tent. And that's another pro about this tent, is that it is freestanding. So I don't have to stake it out in order to put the tent up, except if you want to put the Rainfly on. If you want to have the Rainfly on, then you do have to stake it out. So keep that in mind. But yeah, for those nights where it was going to be good weather and I was just feeling kind of lazy at the end of the day, I didn't have to stake it out. I could just throw up the tent vestibule, hop inside, and that was it. It took like probably a minute to set up. And that was another thing that I really liked about the tent, was that it did have a separate Rainfly. So this is kind of like a personal preference thing, but for me, I really enjoyed having a separate Rainfly because the tent vestibule had a mesh ceiling, so I could sleep without the Rainfly and have this mesh tent around me and be able to look up at the stars and look up at the tree canopy. And that was probably one of my favorite parts about camping and through hiking in general, is just being able to fall asleep under the stars, and also inside my tent, so I don't have to deal with the bugs, or yeah, don't have to deal with the bugs outside, and I can still look up and feel like I'm outside. And yeah, that was just really, really enjoyable. All right, so the cons with the tent are that the waterproofing was pretty mediocre. Like, whenever it rained, it would get a little bit damp inside. And even on the tent floor, I was kind of surprised. So for my ground sheet, I was using window cellophane wrap to save on some weight and also save a little bit of money on the ground sheet, because you have to buy the ground sheet separately from the tent, which is a little bit annoying. But yeah, so I had window cellophane wrap, and when it would rain, somehow the tent floor would always get a little bit damp. I would have like tiny little puddles on the inside of the tent. But I think that's a pretty common thing. I don't know of any tent that stays 100% dry every rainstorm. So it was just like, okay, if it was going to rain out, you're going to get a little bit wet inside. But that's just the nature of through hiking, I think, at the same time. Also, the durability of the tent was a little bit lacking. I got like a 1-inch rip in the tent floor within 10 days of being on the trail. And yeah, I'd used my ground sheet every time. I never set up the tent without the ground sheet. So I was a little disappointed about that, but a little adhesive patch did the trick and lasted for the rest of the trail. So, and I never had any more rips either. So the durability was pretty good. It was all right. And then the last thing is that the Rainfly, the design of the Rainfly kind of makes it so the tent gets more wet, unfortunately. So the Rainfly is really short, and it comes up in the head and foot area so that water will just drip straight onto the tent, which is kind of weird. I don't know, I don't know how much weight they saved by making the rainfly short, but it made it so the inside of the tent would get more wet, and if your head or feet or your sides, if you were touching any walls of the tent, then that part of your body or that piece of gear that's touching the wall is probably going to get a little bit wet. So yeah, I think they should have just made the rainfly have more coverage. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I'm not a Nemo tent designer, but if you guys are listening, just use the extra couple ounces. Make the rainfly bigger, make it better. So yeah, the tent was okay. I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. If I were to get another tent, I would probably get a Big Agnes Copper Spur one-person tent. That's just because it's like pretty much the same tent as the Dragonfly, but the rainfly on that one seems to be a little bit larger. It has more coverage. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the tent. And finally, my sleeping bag right behind me here. It was the Nemo Forte 20-degree synthetic sleeping bag. So I absolutely loved this sleeping bag, and that's why I saved it for last. I want to save the positivity, the best for last. This sleeping bag is amazing, and I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. And I'll tell you why. So the good things about the sleeping bag are it's super comfortable. So it has a spoon, they call it their spoon-shaped design. So it's really wide in the center, so you don't feel cramped at all in the sleeping bag, as opposed to some other straight mummy bags where you're probably just like wrapped up and you're in a straitjacket basically for the night. This thing, it almost felt like you're in a quilt. You can toss and turn in the bag and it doesn't matter. It is super comfortable. And the materials are also real soft. It's great. It stays really warm. It's a 20-degree bag. On the trail, it would get down, I think my coldest night was like 13 or 14 degrees, and I was not cold at all. And it also has these gills that you can zip up. So it has like a little ventilation system. So on those warmer nights, you can air it out a little bit. So yeah, amazing sleeping bag. The other thing that I really liked about it is that it is a synthetic sleeping bag. So you don't have to worry as much about it losing its insulative quality if the sleeping bag gets wet, as opposed to down sleeping bags, where if the down gets wet, it'll start sticking together and it'll lose some of its insulative value. A synthetic sleeping bag dries out a lot better. You don't have to worry too much about getting it wet. And that will happen on the AT. Like, your sleeping bag is gonna get wet, I guarantee it. I don't think it's avoidable. There's a lot of moisture on the trail. Even with just like general fogginess in the morning, you're gonna wake up with a wet sleeping bag at least a few days on the trail, and probably more like a third of the time on the trail, honestly. So yeah, it's good to have a synthetic sleeping bag in that case. And also having a synthetic sleeping bag is great because it doesn't support down practices, doesn't support goose plucking, and if a company says that their down is ethically sourced, or if they have like sustainable down, whatever that means, you can never actually know what goes into a down sleeping bag. So it's like, yeah. And I think it's kind of weird because this issue isn't talked about that much in the outdoor community and in the backpacking through hiking community, that people don't actually talk about the ethics of using down that much, probably because it's just like, it's a trade-off. Down is lighter and it's more packable, so people kind of just like look the other way. But yeah, I don't know. Teach their own too. I don't judge anybody who uses down gear or anything. It's just a personal decision. I prefer to stick with synthetic stuff. Yeah, never had a down puffy, and I don't plan on having down stuff in the future unless it's absolutely necessary. So yeah, let me think about the cons. Cons of this bag, there's almost none, and they're both related to it just being synthetic. It's heavier. It's on the heavier side for a sleeping bag. So I think, how much did it weigh? I think it's 2 pounds 14 ounces, which, yeah, it's on the heavier side for a sleeping bag. A down bag will probably weigh at least like a pound less than that. Oh, another pro of the bag is that it's pretty cost effective. It wasn't too expensive. The bag was $200. For a down sleeping bag of good quality, you're going to be paying at least $300, $250, or $300 on the low end. You can get really crazy with the pricing on your sleeping bag too. I'm sure there's some really expensive ones out there. But yeah, $200, super reliable. It packs down really well for a synthetic sleeping bag. It packs incredibly well. I use the Sea to Summit medium size dry bag to pack it in. I never packed it in the regular Nemo stuff sack, but yeah, the Sea to Summit one, it packs to be about like that big, and yeah, it packs really well for a synthetic sleeping bag. So yeah, I would give the Nemo Forte 20 10 out of 10. I recommend it to anybody, unless you're really a big weight weenie. You got to save those ounces, then you want to get the down bag and get your down bag. But if you're going to go synthetic, get the Forte. It's good. It's good. Yeah. I think that's all I got. That's my big 3 that I used on the Appalachian Trail in 2021. I see a ton of people setting off on the trail right now. It's March 3rd. So it's prime season for getting your Thru-Hike kicked off. But if you haven't left yet, or if you're planning on your Appalachian Trail Thru-Hike in the future, I hope that you'll take my advice and take my reviews and use that information when you're picking your gear to get out there. Yeah, so I'm gonna do some videos in the future about the other aspects, other gear items that I had on the trail, like my clothing setup, cooking, some luxury items. So I'm probably gonna do like 2 more videos like this. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, thanks for watching this video. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe or don't. Whatever. See you later. Peace.